Yeah, I can't put that up on the screen because I can't see it. But Jonathan Exum does ask about that idea there with David. Actually, it's been a discussion for the last several weeks I've seen on social media that the accusation against David is that he did sexually assault Bathsheba. And Jonathan is asking, is there anything in Scripture that suggests that it was non-consensual, or did she lay with him voluntarily? So that is the question. Dad, you have any thoughts about it?
Never heard this before in my life. And
Really?
maybe the reason is I've been reading the Bible, and, and but that is absolutely astounding in view of the later relationship that they have, and everything that transpires in relationship to that. I understand the rights and the powers of the king, and the you know we've just seen that British monarchy and the people bowing down before the king, and you may not fully appreciate, Jonathan, because you won't remember that much about living in New Zealand, but it is as though God selected those people to be king. It's just they have their rights by God's authority, and then the funerals and things of that nature that just kept coming across again and again, and so I just when I read that, I thought, where on earth is that coming from? I've never, I've never heard anything like that, and it may be in there. I've got to go back and reread the text to see if it was there.
It's not.
Sure,
Um,
he sent to her, and she's a subject inside inside that, but it just astounds me to think that David is a rapist. I mean, a man after God's own heart. I know he's a man. I know he's human and everything. But the very fact that the man that has that kind of purity of heart would do something like that is just foreign to everything that there is. Guess what I'm teaching starting on Sunday morning? The life of David. So
no, the argument that I have heard, the first time I ever heard it was actually from a guy that was in one of my classes back when I was still in Texas. But that he was a little bit of a hothead, so I don't think it was planned out from him. I think he just was disagreeing with me on something I was teaching in class and wanted to try and make a point. So he said it in the most heated language he could, I think. But more recently, I have heard the argument being made really from a political standpoint. It's not really so much a biblical argument as it is a political standpoint, and it became most prominent dealing with the Roe v. Wade decision, overturning of Roe v. Wade, and trying to make justification for, again, the oppression of women dealing with men, and so therefore the need of having access to abortion and so on, because even in her situation. So it really has never been, from everything I've seen of the argument, it's never really been made from a biblical standpoint. It's been made from a political activist standpoint. And so, sometimes, Jonathan, you got to consider the source of the argumentation that it's coming from. A lot of times people will try to use, especially these days, people will try to use the Bible to hush people who are Bible believers from actually speaking.
That's right.
And if they can impugn David even more fully, of course, David did a lot of stuff wrong in that encounter. But if they can impugn David more fully, then they think they're trying to lessen the force of the argumentation, particularly as it comes to reproductive stuff and so on. So that's my thought of it. Just as far as the text indicates, Jonathan, I don't know anything in that text which indicates that Bathsheba was anything but a willing partner in the action. David's up on the rooftop, and I'm going to guess that's not the first time David's been on that rooftop. And I would also suggest that it's not as if Bathsheba living next to the palace knows maybe the palace is taller and he can look down on my roof. Maybe, just maybe, the reason she was up there on that rooftop. Now that was a common practice that they used the rooftops to get out into the air and so on. That was a common practice. But you could put up a screen. You could do something to add some privacy while you're bathing. And most women I know, if they had know that somebody can look over, if you got a swimming pool in the backyard and you've got neighbors with a second story window that look down on the swimming pool, most women I know will take some kind of precautions with that. Doesn't seem like Bathsheba did, and so I don't know that she's anything but a willing partner. And there's certainly, as Dad you referenced, there's certainly nothing in the rest of their relationship throughout the rest of David's life that suggests that she is
Well,
anything but happy
all the
to be in
favoritism
power.
he shows to her and everything. I mean, she's not, what he had 7 wives or 8 wives. I think Solomon learned a lot about polygamy from David almost. I mean, at least he tolerated. That's the kind of a world he grew up in, and that is the king having multiple wives. And it's hard for us to imagine that, in because we want to transport every bit of that over to the New Testament and the totality of the revelation of the will of God. And I'm not trying to justify at all polygamy. I'm just saying
Mhm.
that the Bible is written inside a context, and and what astounds me, Jonathan, when I hear things like this, is why don't people just study the Bible?
Mhm.
Why do I have to create an audience on my television program by trying to come up with something new and something different just for the
Mhm.
sake of looking like I'm more scholar than anybody else? Let's just get into the text and study the text and stay right there inside the text. And and when you get when everything has been said that anybody wants to say, let him have 10 programs talking about it. I'm talking about the televangelists. When you get to the bottom line, he has not proved his point. I mean, there's just, where's the evidence? The evidence is not there. And so, I mean, I'm going to reread this, and I thank you, Jonathan, for letting me know that somebody believes it. I mean, but I had never heard that in my life, and so that is just
Uh,
so different.
uh,
And
some of it is tied to um, uh, the different thoughts of, I believe the overarching thought of it is called critical theory, which deals with power and oppression, and effectively people that are in power um, are oppressors, people that are not in power are the oppressed. And so that's the construct of social order that people are looking at in a lot of ways today. And from that standpoint, a feminist or somebody now looking at the story of David and Bathsheba would see a king in power and then Bathsheba who is not in power. And so their point would be that it's not possible for Bathsheba to give her consent because she's an oppressed person and she
yes,
is an oppressed class. And so therefore, every sexual encounter between um, David and Bathsheba would be some kind of sexual assault, no matter what. I mean, I've even heard people of that ilk say the same thing about marriage, because in a marriage, it's a patriarchal system, and so a woman can never truly consent in marriage, and so that all of sexual activity in marriage is an assault. That's actually arguments that people are making. And so, what I think they're doing here in this text is simply, I think, with an activist agenda related to probably abortion, but with an activist agenda, they are um, reading backwards
mhm,
that modern theory into the text, and then coming away with the thought that, okay, this must be a non-consensual encounter between David and Bathsheba. Um, and that's just not Bible. That's not how you study the Bible. And your modern, philosophical slash political ideals don't have a place in the text. There's, as far as I know, nothing in the text that speaks to the consensuality of the action at all. It just simply states that it happened, and then the marriage continued. As far as I can tell from reading it.